really, the starting point of the doctrine of the Trinity isn't necessarily the attempts to find threefold statements and to find where you can find three persons. That's a secondary goal. Really, the starting point is the first step of the boundary of the doctrine of the Trinity. Why Christianity doesn't say there are three gods, 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, is because you start with the uncompromising monotheism of Deuteronomy 6:4. Now, this is a core statement called the Shema. And it's one of the core declarations, the core creed, we can even say, of Judaism. This is one of the key elements of what distinguished Judaism from other religions of the time and still distinguishes it from many other religions, even to this day. The Lord our God is one. And if the Lord is one, how many is that? One. So when we go then to the New Testament and say the revelation of Jesus is a distinct revelation, but not a altogether new revelation, that he doesn't come to abolish the law. He doesn't come to abolish Judaism. He's not necessarily starting a new religion, though of course the forms and a lot of the customs and a lot of elements became really recognizably a new religion even early on. We can say that Jesus was interpreting and expressing a consistent theme of Judaism. And to say that, we can go on a lot of different rabbit trails of different levels of argument and discussion about what it means to be Jewish. But one of the core statements of Judaism is there is one God. Once you say there are more than one gods, you can be doing a lot of other things, but you're not doing Judaism. And so then that becomes the absolute boundary for Christianity, which says it is expressing a continuing interpretation and narrative of this continuing story that God wrote. God wrote, not gods. There's no pantheon in Judaism. Thus, there's no pantheon in Christianity. So that's a boundary. So whatever else we do with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, with all the rest, we are stuck. We are given the opportunity. We are invited to say there's only one God. Okay, now, from that point, we have to then come to terms with other things that seem to push against that, but we can't let that go, so it forces us into an interpretive journey. We do see, as I said before, a plurality within the one God. So here we can talk about what does it mean to be one. One can be a simple unity, just a one is one, or you can have a complex kind of unity. You can have different experiences or different elements within a oneness. In marriage, we say a man and wife become one, for instance. Now, again, that's an analogy, and we don't want to have to go back to our video about Saint Patrick. Oh, Patrick. To say that analogies are challenging and never sufficient. But we can understand that one doesn't mean just a unified one. One person, which is me, I can say, is made up of millions and billions of elements and cells and particles and all the rest. Well, what are we talking about when we are talking about me? Now, again, that struggles with the difficulty of analogy. We're not saying Jesus is a cell within God, but you can see what I mean about a complex expression of unity versus a simple understanding of unity. So the Old Testament does allow for plurality within one God. Genesis 1, for instance, says God creates with the Word and Spirit. Now, those capital letters may become, we can quibble with those, and we can quibble with what the word ruach means in Genesis 1, and how the Jewish theology might understand the expression of the work of the Spirit more like a hand than a distinct person. But still, there's something about these Spirit, Word, that are part of God, yet go out from God. Are they distinct from God? No. But there does seem to be a sender and a sent, an expressor and an expressed. We can see this in Psalm 33, 8 and 9. There was a something that God initiated, God's very presence, in fact. We can see in the passages of Genesis where it says God breathed into humanity. And where God breathed into, there's life. When God takes his breath away, there's death. Well, what is this breath? Is it just an expression, a feeling of God, distinct from God in heaven? How do we understand that? That's the challenge, right? And it's not to say that the Old Testament or Jewish theology does venture more deeply into that, but it's to say that it doesn't cut off the later kinds of interpretive considerations that we see in Christian theology. In later parts of the Old Testament, I mentioned before, wisdom is almost personified. We have this vision of wisdom as going out, and wisdom in female form, not unlike what we see in Ruach, spirit, which we can, I think, rightfully use feminine pronouns for. Some scholars argue that the early Jewish definition of God could include the person of the Son, in a kind of exploration and embodiment of God's traits, of God's reality. There can be a kind of complexity that transcends our own experience of being, and that can be inclusive of elements we say, well, that's just a part, or that's just, an element of, and that actually could be fully God within these distinct kinds of expressions. Now, does that seem too complex for understanding, too complex for reality? Yes. Let's go ahead and say yes. But if you have studied contemporary science at all, you realize reality does not necessarily care about fitting within our understanding of what should be logical and valid. It just does what it wants. So too, God could exist within a plane of existence, a kind of existence that is distinct from ours and include these elements, and the Old Testament doesn't insist on it. It may not even lead us there, but it allows for it. So the key emphasis, however, and I'm going to come back again. So this is what I just did there, was trying to explore, is it possible? Yes. But the key emphasis we get within the Jewish law and writings is there is one God. Christianity cannot defy that. Whatever else we do, whatever else we talk about, however we talk about Jesus and the Spirit and all the rest, are there the rest? There is one God.